going to be a good group. Thanks everyone for coming. Welcome everyone to our March Coffee Chat. I am Laura Knutson-Murray. I'm the GIS Coordinator and Community Outreach Assistant with IrisBG. And with us today is Shanna Jones, our Social Media and Community Outreach Assistant. The recording, presentation, and other material will be made available in our Knowledge Library. All of our previous Coffee Chats can be found there under the category Articles and Presentations. You can follow the topic IrisBG Coffee Chats and be notified via email every time something new is published. We also have a forum. If you have a topic that you'd like to continue a discussion with or start a discussion on with the IrisBG community, you can create a post in our forum and follow different posts. And these coffee chats are for you. It's a space where you can connect with your peers, have a chat about IrisBG or any issues that arise with your work, with your collection. We don't have a fixed format for these, so please get in touch with me if you would like to present a challenge or talk on a topic. It could be anything big or small. Hopefully, you'll make some new connections today, and together we might become a little bit wiser. Just save the date for our next coffee chats. In July, we will hear from Patricia Malcolm on BGCI's new communication facility for plant search. And for our viewers that are in the Pacific time zone or in Australia and New Zealand, we will hear from Nish Pillay, who is owner of Prickly Prospects Cactus Nursery, and he will talk about combating the illegal trade on cacti. Here is an overview of everyone that signed up today. Fun to see where everyone's from. And we will launch 2 polls, our regular poll asking about your experience in IrisBG. What is your level of expertise using IrisBG? Are you a novice, intermediate, advanced, or just trying out the trial? It's good for us to have a sense of your level of understanding of IrisBG. It looks like 60% are intermediate, 22% are novice. So that's good to know. And then we have a second poll with a series of questions. This one's about tree inspections, since that's our topic today. Do you currently conduct tree inspections? Just for an overview, it looks like 94% of you are currently conducting tree inspections. And how do you currently track those inspections? And looks like there's a range. It's almost evenly split. 30% are using IrisBG tree inspections, 25% a third-party contractor, 24% are using spreadsheets, and 41% other. And then the third question, does your institution conduct tree risk assessments? 88% of you said yes. And the final one is, how do you currently assign specific follow-up inspections or tasks to your team? And that, I know, once you've done the inspection, following up is quite important. So thank you for taking a moment to answer our poll questions. And then moving on for our agenda for today, we're going to hear about tree management using IrisBG at the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. We'll hear from Jack Schaefer. He's a passionate horticulturalist and arborist with a deep love for trees and plants. He's the head arborist at the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. He's responsible for keeping track of the park's beautiful tree canopy and keeping it safe. He's an ISA board-certified master arborist and holds a horticulture degree from both Cincinnati State and the University of Cincinnati. He's dedicated to helping plants thrive in urban settings and believes that trees and shrubs play a vital role in making our communities more vibrant, healthy, and enjoyable places to live. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Jack.
Hello, everybody. All right, so my name is Jack Schaefer. I'm the head arborist here at the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanic Garden. And here is a photograph of what the Cincinnati Zoo looks like. As you can tell, we have a pretty large and robust tree canopy here. And that's really important for just generally for the visitor experience. We have a lot of hills. So yeah, there's definitely a zoo kind of hidden underneath there under all those trees. And those trees play a really important role for a lot of different reasons. Our visitors, we have up to 2 million visitors every year, and it gets hot, and we have a lot of hills. So the trees play a really important role in keeping the park cool and keeping it beautiful. We are 150 years old this year, so we have a lot of pretty mature specimens. We're getting to the kind of the age where some of the trees are becoming over mature. We have some really beautiful, interesting trees that, such as this one, that have been there since before the zoo started. So it's really important for us as a botanic garden to keep these trees and to maintain them, but also to make sure that they stay safe. They're a really pivotal, important part of our landscape, but we can't compromise on visitor safety. So a really important part of that is, keeping tree records, keeping records of all the work that we do, and finding some way to store all that information. As you can see, there are a lot of times throughout the year where we are just jam packed full of people. So it's once again, it's really important to make sure that we're keeping all of the trees, keeping a really close eye on all the trees. When I came into this role, trees have been managed by a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. Everyone kind of brought something new, unique, and interesting to the role. And everyone really, honestly, they did a really good job with what they were doing. Something that just I noticed when I came into the role is there was a lot of inconsistency. And it was honestly a little bit difficult to inherit because I wasn't trained by anyone. I kind of suddenly came into the role. So in a lot of ways, I was kind of starting fresh and I was looking for a way to really take all of the information that I was given and to store all that information so that it would, all be in one place. I could go look into the past and access all that information. And yeah, whenever anyone had questions, I would be able to really readily and easily access that information. Another really important thing I wanted to do as I came into the role is I needed to find a way to store information that I was generating because as I just saw in the poll, a lot of you guys are doing risk assessments, you're managing trees through time. And it was just really important to find a way to, say that something happened, to say when it happened, what happened, who did it, how much it cost. And, I found that a really effective way to do that was through using IrisBG. I know there's a lot of different ways to use IrisBG, but in working with Paul Colazar, my coworker here, we found what's been a really, really effective workflow and has worked for us for roughly the past 3 or 4 years. And I think a lot of you will find that it might be effective for you as well. But I'm kind of in between that beginner and intermediate phase, so I'd love any suggestions here at the end if anyone's got anything. Definitely open to improvements in my workflow. And also, just real quick, it's also really important that I kind of came into this role and I had to start fresh in a lot of ways, and that was pretty difficult. So I also wanted to make sure that the systems that I was creating were inheritable, and that's where creating a really good set of instructions, which a lot of people would call process documentation, was really important. So as I was creating all of these systems that I'm going to talk to you today about, I was creating instructions all along the way, both so that people in the future would be able to do this work, but also, me and my fellow coworkers are on the same page. And if I ever forget, how I did something, how to access information, or how I would like to do something, I can see how I've done it in the past and make sure everything and everyone is on the same page. So, with all that being said, let's jump in a little bit on how I took kind of a lot of different information and I put it all together and I got it into IrisBG as kind of a single source, a single place to work out of in the future. So luckily by the time I'd started at, the zoo about 4 years ago. A lot of the records and information were online. So I was not, going through binders and binders of handwritten records and handwritten notes. So that was really good. But what I did have was a lot of really inconsistent, file types, Excel spreadsheets, scans, just a lot of different types of information that a lot of you who work with data know it's kind of hard to kind of consistently, access different, fields and it's not really searchable. So something I wanted to do was try to make everything as consistent as possible. So the first thing I did was I organized it by year. That seemed like a really important step. And then within each year, I tried to give everything as consistent a title as possible, and that's in my process documentation that, if this is a document that is for tree pruning, it should be titled like this with the PO number and just kind of a brief description of what the work was, so that as I click into each year, I can easily see what I'm about to click into, as opposed to this, which, you have some kind of unusual file names which are hard to understand just at a glance. Then, as you can see here, this is one of the first and oldest pieces of information that we put into IrisBG. Our goal was to start with really what was reasonable, and I decided in talking to Paul that one of the best, we have 10 really solid years of information, And let's start with the last 10 years. And then as we get more stuff, as we find some documents from the 80s or 90s or before that, we can put that in later. Let's start with what we can do and what we can do a good job with. So here we are with an Excel spreadsheet of an ash treatment from 2013. There's a lot of information here, even though it's really, it's a simple document. It's what they did, ash treatment, the chemical they used, the date, who did it. Some of them have an accession number, which was really great because those do match with the accession numbers that Paul Kolazar had been working with, that he had put into IrisBG. He had done a really great job importing our old record system over to IrisBG. But you can also see there's some of them that don't have an accession number. So there was definitely a lot of legwork as far as digging into our system, figuring out what at wetland and crane means when as I started at the zoo, we did not have a place called wetland. And then there's also a DBH information. So what we decided to use was inspections. Inspections are a great way of saying that something happened on a certain date, and here's what it looked like at that time. I know that sounds really simple, but it's really important as you're tracking trees through time to be able to say here in 2013, that the DBH was 26 inches or something, and then 10 years later, it's 27 inches. It didn't grow so much. So I really like that the inspections were able to, kind of create that snapshot, but also be able to store a lot of information. So here you can see there's a brief description of the work that was done, who did the work, all of the trees that were touched that day and given the ash treatment, and then yeah, the DBH. So I was able to basically put all of that information into one spot, which is great. And then here's a more modern, perhaps our most recent invoice that we've gotten. So this is a little bit more information. This has the price of the work. It comes with the PO. And then here's what that looks like in there as well. So, there's room to put notes under management. So I was able to put under this tree here where it says remove black locust to ground level hollow debris. I was able to put that in there and then put the reasoning for the work. And so as you open up inspections here at Cincinnati Zoo, you see all of the inspections that there have been. What I love about this is you're able to sort it as it's sorted here, which is by the date that it was put in. So that very first one, 7/24/2013, that is the that first ash that we looked at, and then it kind of goes down the line. But you could also sort it, say, by the name. You could look for anything that's an EAB treatment, or you could find everything that was done in the year 2024. So here is that really big elm tree that we looked at earlier. It's one of the oldest trees at the zoo, and I think it's just kind of the poster child of why it's really important to manage trees at the zoo, to look at them closely. And it's always kind of my reference tree as I'm talking about what I do in IrisBG. You notice here a second ago, here's all of our inspections. What I love about IrisBG is you can actually go the other way as well. You can click on a single item, and you can look at all of the events that are associated with them. And you all likely know that inspections are like a type of event, as far as I understand it. So here I can prove, as it may someday be important to do, that we are really diligent about caring for our trees. Many of you may know there's something called duty of care, which is I think is legally defined as what a reasonable person understands they must do to basically be doing the bare minimum of doing their job, taking care of the trees. And there may be a time in the future where we have to prove that we're doing our duty of care. So what I really liked about IrisBG is it kind of created the simple way of saying, this is everything we've ever done to the tree. Here's all the emerald ash borer treatments that we've done, in this case, the Dutch elm disease treatments we've ever done. We've done cabling. We've done a tree risk assessment every year for this amount of time as part of these inventories. So something else that IrisBG has been really great at, another piece of tree record that I got was tree inventories. And I know that a lot of you guys said that you do tree inventories or tree risk assessments. So some of you guys said, I think maybe even half of you said that you contract out your risk assessments, which I'm sure for many of you would be perhaps a Davy Resource Group or someone similar. And you've likely gotten just a big Excel spreadsheet before. And this is what that Excel spreadsheet looks like. Before I came onto the zoo, we were contracting out all of our risk assessments. And so I have several years of tree inspections that look like this, where you have the location, the species, DBH. But something that was really kind of beautiful as it relates to IrisBG is that I had, the species and then these GPS points. So in order to put this information into IrisBG, I used this information here. And then I also inherited records in the form of planting maps, which luckily had some accession numbers in them, which was crucial in finding actually going into IrisBG and finding the records that were already there. And then I was able to see what was still there in the field as far as confirming species and finding where these things were, and to create a map like this. Many of you are probably really good at using databases and great at using information and data in that way. I'm definitely more of a visual person, so I love to use the maps feature of IrisBG. And so many of you also may have seen, noticed a minute ago that there's a location like the wetlands or by the koala or next to some animal. But animals move around a lot. There's a lot of construction at the zoo. So being able to actually place a GPS point of what tree I'm actually talking about was really crucial as far as, you know, knowing which trees are which. And then here's what that whole inspection that we got from Davy Resource Group looks like in IrisBG. As you can see, this has 301 items in it. So this is definitely a pretty big inspection right here. It was important to note which fields I was using for what in IrisBG. The fields that you get from like Davy Resource Group or from like the ISA track tree risk inspection, they don't perfectly match up with this inspection module here on the right. They match up pretty closely. So I was able to go in and put a condition for the trees, put in DBH and put in a lot of these values, but I made sure in my process documentation to really clearly spell out in order to like I'm putting the value of the tree as this, and this is what that means, so that when someone comes in later, they understand exactly what I mean. All right, so that's all I have as far as taking the work from the past and putting it into IrisBG. Let me know if you have any questions. There's definitely a lot more that goes into that, but I also wanted to touch a little bit on what IrisBG looks like as far as our current workflow. So I spoke a little bit about how much I love using the maps feature, and not only does it help me just generally get a good idea of what the trees look like at the park or be able to find a tree really easily. It helps me with my, actual workflow. Every single year, I go throughout the whole zoo and I double check any tree that has the potential to impact a building or a human. Any tree that could fall and kill someone basically, or any tree that could, fall and damage a building. So, we have hundreds and hundreds of trees that fit that description at the zoo. So being able to pull them up on a map, which I have here, was a really essential part of, being able to do this work effectively. So we use IrisBG on Microsoft tablets here at the zoo, and are really great. It works really well for us. It was really important that I'm able to go out into the field and do this work instead of jotting down notes on a notebook, taking pictures, and going back down to the office later to do the work. We've had I was able to cut down the work from several months into just a couple weeks in order to do this first round of our tree inspections. If any of you are familiar with the ISA tree risk assessment format, this is how we do our level 1 risk assessment, where we just kind of walk by and double check on all of our trees and look at them. So what I do, I go into items, I create a new inspection, and whenever you create a new inspection, all of the items will show up as yellow. That's how I think of it. But open, the items show up as open, which means that that item is not completed yet. You haven't done the work to that item yet. And so something that's really great is as you open up a map and as you pull up a map, you're able to map everything that's open. So you can pull up a map of everything that you still need to visit for that season, for that couple weeks. And then as you go into each of the items and switch everything over to completed, it'll disappear off of your map so you can see what areas you need to target for your work. So here are all, I think, 600 trees that we look at every November, December to just do a quick checkup on, like, are there any giant broken branches in the tree? Are there any huge wounds or fungal bodies, fruiting bodies forming at the base? I go through and I use this tablet. I click on the tree on the map, and then I click over to events, into our current event, and I click completed, and that's my way of saying, when I do a tree inventory and I say an item is completed, I've done my level 1 assessment on it, it's okay. And then kind of the purpose of doing a level 1 assessment is to see which trees kind of merit, a closer inspection, a closer look, what's called a level 2 assessment, which is any time where you would, walk around a tree, take a DBH, kind of probe around a cavity anything like that. And so for us here at the zoo, we have 24 trees where we are doing a much more thorough inspection on. And that is, instead of an inventory, we're calling that a like a tree risk assessment. So that's when these fields start to become a lot more important. I'm calling like the condition of the tree fair, low, and these words carry a lot of legal weight as it pertains to ISA, risk assessments, which is really the standard of risk assessment in the United States, at least. So it was important that I once again articulated what exactly I mean when I say fair and low and how that correlates to the ISA kind of way of measuring trees. And I got all of that down in my process documentation. And then I really love that doing IrisBG out in the field with a tablet. I'm able to look up at the tree and take my notes out in the field. So I can, as I said here, tree is located here. There's minor deadwood, codominant leaders, and then and then I write down any work that I could do in order to improve the general safety of the tree. And then the workflow is much the same where I'm able to, get these 3 trees in one area, say I've done them, and then as I go out to work the next day, I can see where I'm needed to go to get a big chunk of work done. All right. And then here's just a beautiful little panda up there and an elm tree. So yeah, we also do a lot of risk assessment. It's important not only to keep our trees safe for the people who come to the zoo for our 2 million visitors, but to keep our trees safe for our animals, but also for containment purposes. So I'm also going into the animal habitats to do risk assessments there, which the tablet has been helpful for. But really, this was just kind of a fun excuse to put in a picture of a red panda. And then as far as process documentation goes, I made sure that the file system was super, just but like very easy to understand. So just in case it kind of would happen to me, someone one day came into the role, they would be able to just click under trees and see what's there. Under tree management, here are the 2 process documentation documents I created. One for creating accessions for existing trees, and the other one is in putting in work for the past. So something that we had to do a lot was not all of our trees were accessioned. You have just kind of rogue planting of trees or undocumented planting of trees might be a better way to put it. Or you might have naturally generated trees, mulberries, elms that'll just come up and we've let grow into canopy-sized trees. So that's what the process documentation for creating accessions is for. And then also this, which I'm going to just really briefly show you, is our process documentation for inputting work from the past that I talked about at the beginning. So many of you may know that IrisBG is something that, it takes some experience to really get comfortable with. So when I was creating this process documentation, it was really important to put in screenshots and to put really, really clear step-by-step instructions. So as you can see here, it tells you, go here, click this. If this happens, do this. Yeah. So I think that is all that I really have as far as this PowerPoint goes. I could open IrisBG to show some of you guys something in there if you want me to show you some way that I've done something in the system, but that's just generally the way that I manage data from the past, present, and leave things so they're able to be done by the future.
Thank you so much, Jack. That was a great presentation overview, start to finish. I really appreciate you showing us all of that.
Thank you.